In today's video, I want to give you a high-level overview of how ad tracking and how attribution work, because I know it can be a total nightmare for people to understand, especially if you're not in marketing. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to break down how you can collect data as an e-commerce brand, how tracking works, how attribution works, and then hopefully you can make better decisions after watching this video and get better results for your e-commerce brand. Also, if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Rasmus. I'm the owner of Minix, a performance marketing agency where we specialize in helping e-commerce brands scale through paid ads and UGC videos. All right, so the first thing we need to understand, right, is where we can collect data from. That's sort of attribution and tracking 101, right? So there's really three ways you can do it in e-commerce. There's zero-party data, there's first-party data, and then there's third-party data. So zero-party data is what a lot of people consider to be the holy grail of attribution. Basically, zero-party data is just your customers directly telling you where they came from. So that would be something like surveys. Surveys, post-purchase surveys right now are super popular. And a lot of people use that zero-party data to then compare with whatever the ad platform is saying, like Google ads or Facebook ads, what that ad platform is saying, and then just kind of viewing it through two lenses, right? Now, it's great. Zero-party data is great for generally just seeing what ad platform actually left the biggest impression, because as we probably all know, if you're dealing with D2C customers, it's very hard for them to actually know how many touch points they had with their business. They're probably not going to remember some TikTok ad they saw 8 hours ago, 24 hours ago. They're probably not going to remember some YouTube ad they saw from you, but it will give a pretty good indication as to what platform gave the biggest impact and what was the most memorable platform that actually drove that conversion, right? So zero-party data can be great. Now, the second thing is first-party data. So first-party data is basically just data you own. It's data you collect yourself. So you can think like Shopify, for example, that would be first-party data. Klaviyo, that would be first-party data. All these platforms where you're basically collecting a bunch of different information that you can store and export somewhere else, right? So if you're on Shopify, you can export all your customer files and all those purchases. You can export them into CSV and then upload it somewhere else, right? That's data you own. That's first-party data. Now, first-party data can be great for modeling, but it's basically just raw data, right? So you need to model it in some way, shape, or form. Otherwise, it's just going to be a massive CSV file or massive Excel spreadsheet that you don't really know what to do with. So that's sort of first-party data. Now, there is obviously tools that will also act as first-party data that will then model all that data for you. But then we have third-party data. So third-party data is basically everything that you do not own that gets shared back with you in an aggregated manner, which means that you don't have full access to all the data that that platform or that tool is gathering. So think the Facebook pixel, for example. If you get a purchase through Facebook ads and you see that in your ads dashboard, that's third-party tracking, because you cannot see all the information on that customer that made the purchase, right? You cannot see the first name, last name, email address, phone number, physical or shipping address. You can see when the purchase happened, what platform it happened on, and how much that purchase was for, but you cannot see everything, right? So third-party data is just something that's shared with you indirectly, basically. So now we have that out of the way, right? Now we know, okay, there's zero-party data, first-party data, and third-party data that we can use to collect data, and we can use all these different things to then compare with each other, right? Because there's different ways of looking at it, and it's also different tracking, which is super important, because when we talk about tracking, each and every platform has its own host of issues. Now, specifically third-party data, that's probably the one you know the best, because we had this whole iOS 15 and iOS 14.5 scandal or issue 2 years ago, or maybe it was 3 years ago. Basically, with iOS 14.5, Apple was able to, cut off all third-party tracking devices or all third-party tracking tools so that the consumer could have more control over what data they actually shared. Now the big caveat here is that they could shut off third-party tracking tools, but not first-party tracking tools, because third-party tracking tools works based on cookies, and first-party tracking tools doesn't work necessarily like that. So that's why, instead of freaking out, people resorted to using tools such as Triple Whale that could come into existence, and Triple Whale, Northbeam, there's a bunch of these different tools that can actually act like a Facebook pixel or a TikTok pixel or whatever you use to run ads with, but that can act as first-party data, right? So now that's something you own, and Apple cannot shut that off. Apple cannot deny you of tracking your customers, because basically if you cannot track your customers, then you wouldn't know where to ship and who to ship to, right? So if you could not see that, then you would have a whole host of issues, and that obviously cannot function. Third-party data took a big hit with stuff like the Facebook Pixel, but now we then have Triple Whale and we have the conversion API that got rolled out, which basically bypasses all this. So that's also why when people say, oh, Facebook ads or Facebook Meta can't track anymore, it's because they're likely not using the conversion API, but they're using the Facebook web browser Pixel, which is third-party data. But the conversion API inside Facebook is first-party data, and that's a very big difference on that, right? Remember, first-party data is data that you own. Now, with tracking out of the way, right? So now we kind of went from, okay, you can collect data from different ways, and that data then gets tracked differently depending on what sort of data it is, right? So as I said, third-party data, that would be stuff like the Facebook web browser Pixel. First-party data would be stuff like Triple Whale, which does not get impacted by stuff like iOS 14.5. And then you have zero-party data, which is customers directly telling you where they came from. Now that obviously has its own host of issues because customers might particularly don't know where they actually came from. They just remember the ad that they saw and maybe that they clicked on, right? But you're not entirely sure. But now the question then becomes attribution. What platform actually got the purchase? Because it might not be as easy as you think. So there's two things we need to talk about here. There's the way the purchase gets attributed, so that can be through a click or a view, and then there's the model in which you interpret that data, and there's a couple different ones, and I'm just gonna run through three of the like biggest ones. But basically, attribution is just a way of measuring and modeling all this data that you have coming in, right? Because if you have someone clicking a Google ad and then abandoning the website, getting served a TikTok ad, jumping into the website again, and then converting through an email, then what platform actually gets the purchase, right? That's the whole answer that attribution is trying to answer. And so you can measure it in two different ways. You can measure it through clicks or views, or you can do both. So actually three. Basically, what that means is that if you have a click attribution, then that will mean that if I clicked a Facebook ad, for example, and then I made a purchase, then that purchase would get attributed back to Facebook. I will see that in Facebook Ads Manager. If I have views, then that will mean I would just have to see a Facebook ad, not necessarily click on the ad, then go onto your website, and then that purchase would show up in the Facebook Ads Manager dashboard, right? So they have two different functions, and one is not necessarily more correct than the other. It kind of just depends on what you want to measure, because if you want to do only views, then it depends on what you want to measure. Because if you want to do only clicks, then you might only be looking at, what's the direct impact, but you might be missing out on what's the total contribution that this ad actually had to my revenue. Because that's basically what views are, is that, okay, you're saying, or you're basically measuring, if someone saw an ad, I'm interested in knowing that. And then if it shows up in your ads dashboard, then you know, okay, that ad actually had a contribution to this customer journey, right? So those are like the clicks and views. Now we have attribution models, right? So the three big ones are like linear, last click, and last platform, which is something Triple Whale rolled out, or some people also call it data driven. But basically, it's, as I said, it's a way of modeling data. So in this example, right, we have someone clicks a Google ad and then they click a Facebook ad and then they make a purchase, right? Which platform gets the purchase? Now, if you use linear, then if I bought for $100, then you would see a $50 conversion event in Google and you would see a $50 conversion event in Facebook. So you would see two purchases and it would basically just be split even, which might not make the greatest sense. It's usually not the one we like to go for. I would much rather prefer to look at something like last click, which basically just means that if I click the Google ad and then the Facebook ad, the entire conversion, the entire purchase would be attributed back to Facebook. So I would basically see nothing from Google's side, but at least I would know that Facebook actually drove that last conversion, and that I can then use to determine, okay, hey, Facebook is good at driving the end result, right? Using last click attribution, you still don't know what platform actually started the conversion event or started the customer journey, but then you can use something like first click, which is a third option you have to basically just measure results, right? So if you have a platform that has a ton of conversions based on first click attribution, but very low on last click, then that tells you that that platform is really good at driving the beginning of a customer journey, but maybe not as good as executing it or getting that customer to actually convert. Doesn't mean it's not performing well, just means that it's not good at driving the last action to actually make a purchase, right? And then the last thing we have is last platform or data driven. So this is something that Triple Whale uses quite heavily, and that's basically just a way of them saying the last ad platform someone clicked on, that platform gets the conversion. And that means that if I click the Google ad and then I click the Facebook ad, and then after that I got to the domain organically, so I just typed in the search bar, Facebook ad would get that conversion, not what we would call direct or Google, because Facebook was the last platform where I spent money on getting that customer to click on an ad. So that's what last platform is. And that might be a little bit more not correct, but it's easier to manipulate those numbers to then drive actual results for your business. Because if you have a ton of conversions, and you will see that, use platforms like Google Analytics or Shopify to track your conversions and seeing where they come from, you will have a lot of direct purchases. What they will be called is basically just people getting to a page organically. And Triple Whale kind of bypasses that by saying, okay, the last ad platform the person came from, that's what we're going to attribute the conversion to, because you cannot manipulate how many people actually search for you organically, but you can manipulate how much money you're spending on Facebook, right? Or Google ads or TikTok ads. So I would say last platform click is definitely a better way of doing it than stuff like last click, because you just ensure that all your purchases are in some way, shape, or form getting attributed back to your ads, so you can see the total impact that your ads are having. But yeah, that pretty much sums up today's video. It was probably a lot to go through. Hope you're still with me. If you have any questions about this, I would love to answer in the comment section. Just let me know down below, and yeah, I'll shoot you a quick reply. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. That will help you out massively. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.